Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Good to have you back for the final session here today at the summit. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this, of course, will be discussing on building energy resilience. Now, this is going to be the final session. We'd like to invite you to engage as much as you can as well. Moderating this session is Arthur Hanna, Senior Managing Director, Accenture Strategy. Already on stage is our prolific panel. Allow me to introduce them one at a time and their titles as well. We have Loretta G. Asen, Undersecretary, Department of Energy, Republic of the Philippines. Tor E. Svensson, Group Executive Vice President, DNVGL. Aaron A. Domingo, Executive Vice President and COO, Meralco Power Gen Corporation. Mohinder Gulati, Acting Chief Executive Officer at United Nations Sustainable Energy for All. And finally, we have Agneta Rising, Director General, World Nuclear Association. Do enjoy the session. I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Hanna right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, and welcome everyone, and good afternoon. I again would like to reiterate my thanks to the organizers for what has been a superb day talking about the very important issue of energy transition. I think the day started with Minister Iswaran really setting the stage for the challenges that the energy system faces and also some of the components of the energy transition. And that was followed up by Executive Director Birol giving us a great overview with regard to the key areas of challenge within the system today and obviously some of the challenges as we move to Paris and COP21. Our panel today will talk about the very important issue of energy resilience. And it's interesting, really, that I started in the energy industry in 1980, and probably if you were to talk about those two words, energy resilience, we probably would have focused on one component only, and that is the security of energy supply. And since that time, and more recently, we now have words that really weren't part of our lexicon those many, many years ago, and perhaps weren't part of our lexicon even 10 years ago, i.e. in the lexicon we have issues associated with cybersecurity. We have issues called climatic events. Of course, we've had climatic events since time immemorial, but it's amazing what the Weather Channel does to actually bring to bear the issues of climatic events and their impact on the energy system. And then more recently, obviously, we've had the issues of financial shocks, and they have had implications for the way in which we think about investment in the energy system. And again, in the way that Executive Director Birol highlighted today, you take 20% out of the capital system and maybe another 20% next year, and we are in a world of pain potentially in terms of the investments required, certainly in the industry that I work in, oil and gas. So there are very new components that impact our energy system that highlight the importance of energy resilience. We have, as was stated, a fantastic panel today to explore the issues of energy resilience. And really what I asked the panel to think about was, you know, on the aeroplanes and the various forms of transport that we took coming to the conference over the last number of days, I'm sure we gave a lot of thought to what we thought about resilience, and it'd be very interesting to understand from each of the panelists is what is their thoughts on the major impact? What's the one thing that they think about in terms of that could really impact the energy system as we go forward? So we'd like to kick off the session with Madam Undersecretary to commence the remarks with regard to energy resilience.
Good afternoon to all. First of all, allow me to thank the Energy Market Authority of Singapore for inviting the Philippine Department of Energy to this much-awaited event, the Singapore International Energy Week. So my congratulations to the organizers for putting together policymakers, industry leaders, as well as energy stakeholders to discuss energy trends, some emerging issues, and discussing ideas, insights, and technical as well as creative solutions to the challenges that we are facing now under the new normal situation in the world. So the session topic, which is building energy resilience, is timely and relevant. We find affinity in this topic because nearly 2 weeks ago, the Philippines hosted the APEC 12 Energy Ministers meeting in Cebu. And the energy ministers from 21 APEC economies emphasized the importance of energy resiliency in attaining or promoting energy security as well as sustainable development. Well, we define energy resiliency as the ability and the quality of energy systems and infrastructures to withstand extreme natural and man-made disasters that beset us in the present time, and then recovering and returning to normalcy in a timely and efficient manner, and of course, importantly, building back better. So there are 4 thematic strategies that were taken up in that meeting, and in order to attain energy resiliency, first one is something like disaster-proofing energy infrastructures. So we identified some action steps that in order to reach that goal, and these are something like vulnerability assessment of existing infrastructure, upgrading standards for energy infrastructures, and retrofitting, as may be necessary, through engineering solutions, the present infrastructure that we have. And then there was a keen interest in enhancing the quality of power plants so that there will be energy resiliency. And then the second thematic strategy that we look at was resiliency in potential energy supply disruption. So I think what we're looking at here is the energy mix. So we want to get the appropriate mix of energy resources and power generation technologies so that we're able to address potential disruption in energy supply. And also we're looking at, in connection with this, the energy poverty-stricken areas. These are communities located in far-flung areas and hinterlands, off-grid areas, and we think they are the most hit by natural and man-made disasters. So we think that there should be community-based use of clean energy in these energy poverty-stricken areas. The third thematic strategy is more on the emerging and cutting-edge energy efficiency so that we're able to improve the utilization of energy in both economic and business processes. And we always say that energy efficiency is one way to mitigate climate change. And the fourth one, which is the last but never the least, is the encouragement of public-private partnerships so that we're able to attain cross-border investments. We see the importance of massive capital investments from the private sector so that we're able to do energy systems and energy infrastructures, produce energy goods and services through investments coming from the private sector. Of course, with government participation, that's why we think that government should encourage investment-friendly environment so that we can entice or invite these investors to do energy projects that will towards energy resiliency, like maybe retrofit of your energy infrastructure definitely would require so much investment. So I think really improving energy trade investments are very important aspect of this energy resiliency. So in order to attain this, the APEC has decided to create a task force on energy resiliency. This is to be co-chaired by the Philippines and the United States of America. And any output of this task force, maybe research and development, getting best practices, sharing of information, capability building, I think this will all redound to benefit for all the economies, countries that could be having or replicating all these findings, the guidelines, or whatever sharing that will come out of this work of the Task Force on Energy Resiliency. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Undersecretary. And it would actually be quite interesting, I think, to return to the issue of the public-private partnership discussion, because I think that's a theme that is something that we should explore a little bit further as we go forward. So thank you for that. Tor, can I ask you to make some comments in terms of your thoughts and critical issues that you see at the moment?
Thank you very much, and yes, I'm very pleased to be able to give some views here today. I'm lucky enough to work for an organization that's both involved in the energy business, the power business, but also in the oil and gas and in the marine transportation. So many of the topics that's been discussed here today on oil, on LNG, and on energy systems actually fit to what we are involved in. So I'm trying to see the wider picture in this, and that's very interesting. But come to the main topic, and it's been discussed a lot today, this what shall we say, the tension of the energy trilemma between sustainable, affordable, reliable, because that's really what the core of what we are talking about. And we must be able to solve this trilemma whilst indeed enhancing the resilience of the electricity and power generation system. And this is a great challenge because we are in a transition from a conventional system to one built around the characteristics of renewables, and that's causing us, I think, some interesting challenges. Sustainability drives this energy transition, and it takes us into some new territories for security and other things. We will require a complete transformation of what we have today, and we probably have to do that in half the time it would normally take to transform a whole energy system, maybe 30 years instead of the 50 to 70 years it would normally take. So this is a huge challenge for the whole industry. And decarbonizing the energy system means that more things will be also electric in the future, because it's not only the power systems we are decarbonizing, we are also decarbonizing other aspects of our society. And, for example, transportation. And this means that we are actually moving into more electrification in the future. And that poses some quite interesting challenges. For example, imagine that all the cars in Singapore are going to charge up during the night rather than go to the petrol station. In addition to this, something we'll come back to in the discussion, I'm sure, is this transition also introduces some new elements like cyber threats, which I'm sure we're going to discuss a little bit. But before I finish, I'd like to talk about 4 sort of solutions or main focus areas I think we need to address in the energy trilemma whilst preserving resilience. First of all, we need an integrated approach to climate risk and energy transition. This is actually critical to securing sustainable and reliable and affordable supplies in the future, because electricity systems are a major driver of climate change. We need, as we are restructuring around renewables, the environmental constraints and technology innovation and storage and smart grids and things like that, we need to actually address resource planning in a different way. The second point is we need much deeper expertise in how to deal with power system related cyber risks, as I mentioned before, how to reduce these and actually maximize the benefit of smart grids in the future. The electricity systems are becoming very data rich. We are actually, the price of greater flexibility and efficiency from more data, sensors and connectivity can give us less resilience to such vulnerabilities. We need to address this in the actual planning, design of the systems, and how we actually operate the systems. That's a point I think which is very important. It might actually help us, because as we will move to more renewables, we are maybe also moving to more distributed power systems, so that may actually make us a little bit less vulnerable than the old sort of monolithic structure, but we may discuss that also a little bit. The third point is that time and location will increasingly determine value of power, electricity. Regulations actually also need to reflect this and the evolving economics. And we are moving from sort of variable to fixed costs, because renewable energy removes the exposure to fuel costs. And this shift actually also is compounded by the flexibility of storage, demand response, and more distributed deployment. So that we need to facilitate actually this, and that's also important. And the final one is around taxes and subsidies. They actually increasingly need to value energy sustainability. And this can help reshaping the whole electricity systems, investment and business models. And I think that's also a very important way of, we can use regulations and taxes to actually accelerate the introduction of cleaner, safer, smarter technologies. And that was pointed out this morning by the fact that 2/3 of what's coming the next few years of additional energy is actually renewables. And that means that what governments have done to subsidize this has actually worked. I think I'll stop there.
Okay, Tor, thank you. So one question that I would want you to address, and Madam Under Secretary, I'll come back to you after, but Tor, what is the biggest threat to the security of the global energy system? What would you say today is the biggest risk to the energy system?
The biggest risk, if you look at the long-term perspective, I think is that if we cannot manage to decarbonize and change it, transform it quick enough, the industry will lose control and be even more regulated than it maybe wants to be, because the public demand on this transition is there.
Okay.
I think that's a big risk.
All right. Madam Under Secretary, I didn't ask you the question, so I'm going to come back to you. What do you think the biggest risk is?
We talk of natural and man-made disasters, but for the case of the Philippines, it's more of the natural disasters, like the extreme weather conditions, like the Typhoon Haiyan. We lost 6,000 lives. There were damages in